everybody. So today we are going to talk about back to school and how to prepare yourself. So it's August or maybe September. There are T-minus not enough days till the first day of school, and you've either started doing all the planning or maybe you're living in denial while you're soaking up the last few days of summer. No regrets there. But since you are here watching this video, I'm going to guess that you are doing all the planning or all the stressing. So let's talk about practical ways to prepare for this school year in terms of planning. So first, decide how you will plan and get yourself a system. I have tried, seems like everything. I've tried digital slides, paper and pen planners. I've made my own planner and had Staples print and bind it, but I currently use and like an online platform called Planbook because I can share it with my students and plan for myself. So choose one method that you can use consistently and get yourself ready to plan. Here are some suggestions to get you started. Number one, revisit last school year. Now that you've put some distance between yourself and the last day of school, you can look more objectively at what worked and what didn't work. When were students the most engaged? What made you really light up as a teacher? What were you and your students' biggest stumbling blocks? Go ahead and write all these thoughts down and then look for trends or kind of try to group your ideas together. If you give an end of year survey, sift through that data as well. Now that you've completed your brain dump, I want you to consider solutions. We're talking macro solutions and micro solutions here. So maybe on a macro level, you need to revamp an entire unit of study. Or maybe on a micro level, maybe you notice that your students responded really well to a particular kind of activity or assessments. Maybe they love stations or hexagonal thinking. How can you do more of this and channel that energy? Make a list of changes you want to make and then categorize them into must, maybe, and I don't suggest changing everything. Pick a couple things that would make your year better and start there. At the same time, do not forget to celebrate the things that did go well. Make sure that you plan ahead. I always aim to have my first 3 days. We always start back on a Wednesday. So the first 3 days of that week on autopilot. And because I am a planner, I like to write down a preliminary timeline for the first unit to run by my PLC as well. Once you have sketched this out, gather any resources you already have together and make a list of tasks you need to complete. And if you are blessed with a highly functioning PLC, divide and conquer those tasks. Next, I suggest that you review your syllabus. I suggest making this short and sweet and student-friendly. I know a lot of teachers who spend a ton of time on their syllabus, and that's great. And I'm saying this with love. If your students are like mine, they will not give it more than a cursory glance. What you can do is switch up the format. So you might try a one-pager syllabus. That's just what it sounds like. All the must-know information is there in digest format. You can include QR codes for more information if you'd like. You might try a screencast syllabus. Record yourself highlighting key points on the syllabus. This is a great way to flip the syllabus talk and free up some class time. If you're feeling like a teacher ninja, you could try uploading this to Actively Learn so that you can check for understanding and completion of this task as well. Beyond the nitty-gritty planning, there are little things you need to do to get ready for the first day of school. If there are resources you know that you'll need, maybe you need to copy things, cut things, laminate in advance, and put them in your classroom. And speaking of classrooms, take some time to put your room in order. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not a room guru. I do not have flexible seating. It gets too dirty for my liking. Plus, it's against our district's fire code. I do not have a theme. I do have a bunch of welcoming quote posters, table groups, and walls ready to be filled with student work, and that is enough for me. Now, if you prefer to go all out on your room, you do you. I find that my limited time is better spent elsewhere. Next, let's talk about first day of school routines. When the first day of school finally arrives, you will be dressed, you'll be ready to go in a room that has been ready for students and armed with a plan. But what happens on that first day? Well, it will fly by faster than you might expect. Here are some things that I always do on my first day of school. Number one, I do not use a seating chart. This is because I sneakily want to see who students naturally choose to sit by. In a particularly talkative class, I will post-haste split these students up when I create their first seating chart. I give each student a note card when they enter and ask them to write down first and last names and any nicknames and draw me a picture. These note cards are gathered up and they go into a library card pocket on the wall, and I use them almost every day to group students and randomly call on table groups. I introduce myself then, and I ask each student to tell me about him or herself in 1,000 words or fewer, or some other sort of icebreaker activity. Beyond this, though, my goal is really to get students thinking and curious about the class. I want to prompt thought or discussion with an activity. So here are some that you might try. You could read something and have students create a graffiti wall response. You could have them listen to an inspiring TED Talk or podcast and then stop. You can have them listen to an inspiring TED Talk or podcast and talk about student motivation or set goals for the year. You could host a book speed dating event and have students begin a reading next list. You could do icebreaker stations. There's a lot of options there. Last but not least, if you want to know the biggest way to prepare for the school year, it's to do whatever you can to take care of yourself. And make sure that you have routines and systems in place so that you can continue to take care of yourself once the school year begins. Why is it that we take so much time to plan and prepare to take care of our students without taking time to plan for our transition back to school? The first day of school marks a tired transition that often means, at least for me, if I don't actively push against it, that I can soon find myself skipping exercise, running out the door without lunch, and having to eat in the cafeteria again, and wondering what in the world to make for dinner at the end of the day. So know yourself and don't promise that it will be better this year without making the changes to ensure that it is better this year. What do you need to change so that you can be the best version of you for your family, for your students? Do you need to take a day to meal prep each week? Do it. Do you need to wake up an hour earlier to exercise before your day begins? Do it. If that's the only time you'll commit to it, make it happen. I would encourage you, Google Mel Robbins's 5-second rule and show up for yourself. Maybe you need to delegate some household chores. Ask an assign man, because if you don't, those October doldrums that hit teachers with regularity will be even tougher, mark my words. So take care of yourself. Thank you so much for listening, and I really want you to know that you've got this. Despite what you hear from Harry Wong, your school year is not doomed if you do not have the perfect first day, complete with making students line up outside the classroom until they can enter appropriately. You don't need to write out a speech. You do need to do all you can do before that first day of school so that your first few days almost run themselves. This will allow you to focus on your students. It will also allow you to leave at your contractual time, come home, spend time with your kids, and get some rest. 120 human beings are in your room for a reason. You get to teach them, you get to mentor them. What an awesome privilege and responsibility we are given as teachers. Not only do we get to start each school year with a blank slate and more lives to impact, but we get to continue learning and growing. So let's do our best to make this year of teaching count. Thank you so much for listening, and I would encourage you to click on the link in the description of this video to download my free guide to streamline grading, 20 of my best strategies to help you get off that grading hamster wheel and escape the teacher overwhelm that comes from feeling like you are always in some sort of grading cycle, responding to student work, and lacking personal time to do what you really love to do.